Hey everybody, Jim the Tabletop Engineer here, and welcome to a new crafting video. This is actually part 2 of a 2-part series. I am creating another spaceship. Spaceship may be the wrong term. This is a cargo loader. If you watched the previous video, you saw sort of how I made this. This right here is the basic form, what I call the skeleton. It's made completely out of chipboard and hot glue. This is the main body, and it's got these arms that are intended to like scoop or hold the cargo while it moves it around. I designed this specifically for this cargo container that I did in a previous video. You can find the link to this in the description below. But if you attempt to do something like this and you have your own style of cargo containers, you'll definitely want to possibly alter it so that it just sort of fits and looks. Now, this is probably one of my favorite parts of crafting a ship or a science fiction vessel of some sort. It's adding all the greebles, the little detail bits that make it go from this flat, bland-looking thing to something that looks a little more technical, a little more industrial, and a little more realistic. What I'm going to do in just a moment is I'm going to put the camera down on the tabletop. I'll narrate for a little bit, but mostly this is going to be time-lapsed because you don't want to sit here for an hour or however long it takes me and watch me, put different things and look at them and see and cut things and all. So I'll speed it up and you'll just see how slowly over time it just sort of develops a character. Now, once the greebles are all put on and I'm happy with it, then what I do is I go and I hit it with a coat of gray primer, paint primer. And I don't yet know what color I'm going to make this yet. Probably just gray primer, and then I'll hit it with extra colors as needed. So let's get to the tabletop. I'm going to put the camera down and I'm going to start adding all the little greeblies to this. Okay, that was fun. That is probably, I just love adding detail to some of my creations. And, unlike the professionals who have access to thousands of model kits for their greeblies, or a lot of times these days, it's all done digital, or they have 3D printers that can print amazingly detailed pieces. I guess I could do that too. I have a 3D printer, and I know a lot of you probably do as well, and you could certainly design a lot of your greeblies custom, but it takes time to design them in CAD, and then it takes time to print them. And so I like the old school way of just using what you have. My junk drawer, which is actually a junk bin, it used to be 2. I consolidated it into 1, but I'm using it up pretty quick. I'm going to start having to refill it, look for things I can take apart for parts. But anyway, let's go over this real quick before I paint it. So here is the loader so far. Now, it looks weird because you're seeing the brown chipboard. It's not primed, all one color. Once you prime it a single color, everything pulls together. And then, of course, you have to go back and paint the items that aren't supposed to be that color, like the conduit that I used for I don't know, you could use this. This could be exhaust. It could be, energy feed. I don't know. The chain was a last minute, not last minute. I found a thing of chain and I was like, I got to add chain. So I added some chain in here. Some of you may recognize some Lego parts. There's also some, what's the other one? I just went blank on the competitor, VEX, VEX, robotics kits. I used to write books for, about Lego robotics and just robotics in general for kids. And so I have tons of scrap parts from both types of kits around all kinds of places. So I tend to reach for them when I need to. These things back here are Lego bits right there. So actually one of them is a VEX and two are Lego. That's it. But anyway, there it is. Now it is still back heavy. I haven't figured out that yet. I'm probably going to go get a small piece of metal, heavy, like a real, I don't know, something, either some little heavy bars of steel or iron or whatever, and I'm going to glue them inside these grooves right here to hold this down. But I like it. It's exactly kind of what I was going for. Very industrial. So here's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to go out and I'm going to prime it gray, all gray. And then while I was making it, I was thinking about what color I wanted it to be. And my mind kept coming back to the power loader from the Aliens movie that Sigourney Weaver used to beat the tar out of the alien queen. It was yellow, but it was all beat up and scratched. I'm going to see if I can go that way. I'm going to prime it gray, and then I'm going to hit it with an industrial yellow. And then I'll go and paint individual things and weather it so that it looks like it's really been abused bad. But, it's designed to hold the cargo container in the center here and, fly around, zip around, and move cargo containers. So this is what I was going for, and it's not overly huge. On a gaming table, it's something that the miniatures could climb up on. They could use as cover, obviously, but especially if there's a cargo container in here, they have different levels that they can hop up on. And this is going to be fun to play with. All right, so let me get this primed, and then we'll get to the painting bit.
All right, I just wanted to give you a look at this real quick. It's been primed. Got a little bit of still hot glue that strands here and there, or maybe that was just paint. I don't know. But I've given it a good coat. You can see it's not perfect. I've got some yellow there. But do your best. I'm not going to waste any more primer on this because I'm going to be using a yellow primer and paint spray to get the rest of this covered in all yellow. And then I'll go back and I'll paint the chain, the tubes, and other bits and pieces. They're individual colors. But I'm going to go with an industrial yellow for this vehicle. And then I'll cover up the yellow where I don't want it visible with other paint.
All right, here you go. This is it painted in yellow. Now, it's a little washed out on the video screen, but it's not a fluorescent yellow, but it is a nice solid yellow. I intentionally didn't overspray, like I didn't give it 2 coats, because one thing I noticed was as I was painting it over the gray primer, this yellow, it started looking dirty. It started looking like worn in certain areas. So rather than paint it, give it a second coat and make sure it was all this like consistent yellow, I've left it many areas just undone. Not undone, but they don't have as heavy of a coat of yellow. So I'm hoping that that's going to add to the look of it as being an industrial tool that's definitely been used. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move the camera to the desktop here, and I'm going to get painting on this. I'm going to time lapse it. You really don't need to see me pick and choose every color and figure out what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to paint it, and when it's done, I'll get you some close-up photos appended to the end of this video, as well as come back and talk about the entire process. So let me get to the tabletop and let me get painting. All right, so here it is. I laugh at some of these things that I make. I'm looking at it and I'm realizing it makes no sense. I mean, yeah, it's a space vehicle or something with anti gravity that's meant to, carry a cargo thing. It's ugly. It's beat up and dirty, which is exactly what I was going for. It has that industrial look to it. What would I do different? First off, I wouldn't have glued the chains on with the primed model. I would have done this after because painting the chains was kind of a pain in the butt. But everything, I'm just laughing because I love the way it turned out. It's just this ugly industrial looking contraption that uh, it looks science fictiony. It definitely looks industrial. It's dirty and used and worn, and I nailed it. At least in for what I was going for, something to carry a cargo tube or a cargo container. It definitely did well. I hope you're getting a good look at this. So it makes no sense. What are these? Why is there a chain? Why is this thing supposed? It's got anti-gravity, but it uses chain for the arms. Don't try to make sense of it. Just accept that sometimes when you make something for a science fiction setting, at least, it doesn't have to make sense. This is from the future. We don't know what it is, but I cannot wait to use this thing as a bit of terrain on a tabletop, especially with a container in it, because the miniatures now have something to hide behind, but they also have elevation. They also can go, underneath it here. So this is exactly what I was hoping for. I didn't want it to be too big, and it's on it for like a 2x2, 2 foot by 2 foot gaming area. This is not going to overwhelm the table. It's not like a single large centerpiece item. So there you go. I hope you like it, and I hope you give it a shot. You don't have to make it exactly as I did, but hopefully I've given you enough of an idea of how I made it, some of the dimensions. It got to a point where when I was making it, it was getting hard to give you some of the dimensions. Sometimes you just have to cut things to fit. So whereas I was giving you dimensions of like the main body and maybe this engine housing here and maybe the cockpit, I can't remember, and maybe the arms, although the arms were definitely cut sort of by sight, and then I made 4 copies, one for each side, and then I used chipboard to create the thickness of it. This one could be a little more difficult to recreate exactly as I've done, but that's okay. I'm just hoping to give you some inspiration so that you could try to do something like this for yourself. All right, that's all I have for this week. Next week, I will be back with another crafting video. I have an idea for a fantasy centerpiece. Would it be a centerpiece? I guess it could be a centerpiece. So join me next Wednesday, and I'll have a new crafting video up for you. But until then, this is Jim, the Tabletop Engineer. Everybody, take care.